Let's start with schools. Last Friday, we had a huge announcement that the Newark Academy was being moved from one sponsor to the other. First of all, how did this come about? Was this something that we were all expecting, or was it a shock?
Well, it wasn't a shock. It's actually been something that's been bubbling away for quite a long time, and for those parents and students who'd been thinking about it and in discussions, it had become quite frustrating actually that it's taken this long to come to fruition, but it has, and I think that's something that we should be very positive about. The history of the Newark Academy has been mixed, it has to be said, in the last couple of years. There was this huge battle by parents, governors, my predecessor as MP and the Newark Advertiser to get the school rebuilt. Ultimately successful. That was a major achievement for the town to see, a school which was probably in the worst condition of any school in Nottinghamshire, rebuilt in such beautiful buildings. But yet, when somebody should have been cutting the ribbon and celebrating, we had a strike of some of the staff. We had a lot of uncertainty amongst students, teachers and parents, and so the school was in a pretty dark place at the beginning of this year. I didn't feel that the sponsor, Lincoln College, was the right sponsor for the school, whilst Lincoln College is actually very good at further education, both in Newark and in Lincoln. It didn't really have the expertise, the resources or the vision to take the school forward and to focus relentlessly on academic standards, aspiration, increasing opportunities, and build trust in the town that this was exactly the school that every parent wanted to send their children to. And so I think it was absolutely right that the government, through their regional representative, looked for a new sponsor for the school, and that process frustratingly took a few weeks or indeed months to complete, but certainly from my perspective it had become apparent really early on this year that Lincoln College needed to step aside, and if we were to choose any new sponsor, the best one I could see locally was Torch, and I think we see that just in the sheer number of Newark students who go to their other school at Tootil. You've got almost 100 young people in every year group at Tootil, so parents and students are voting with their feet, if you like, and trusting the formula that the school has. And so the idea that the people who run that school and a number of others in Nottingham should come in and provide leadership and, I think, hopefully intensive resources to the Newark Academy must be good news, and because of their track record must be something that Newark parents can appreciate and will get behind as a really positive step forward for the school. Lincoln
College Academy Trust that have been running the school, as you say, since the start of the academy life for what was the Grove, have done quite a lot of things to the school. They've done the very best. Keith Batty, who is their chair, basically when he addressed the staff, because of course I have a staff role at the school as well, was saying that originally when they were asked to look at the school, the government were kind of pushing a more vocational outcome for students, which have now, as he said, turned more academic. Can you just kind of quantify that for me so I understand it better? Because when they came in a few years ago, it was all vocational. I don't understand what he meant with that. Do you know?
Well, I think what he was probably trying to say was that part of the justification or the idea behind Lincoln College coming into the then Grove was that they could use some of their expertise as actually very good suppliers of vocational training to support the school and to define it as a school which offers more vocational training, which gives greater links for young people to move either to a college or to apprenticeships and other vocational career training for future careers. And I think there was a move under the last government, the coalition government, with an education secretary like Michael Gove, to say that whilst that's very important, every child should be given a solid foundation in terms of the basic academics. Everyone should have the opportunity to have a good education and schooling in maths, in English, and in other strong academic subjects. And so I think that there has been a bit of a shift in national policy. But I also think that one of the reasons why Lincoln College was not ultimately the right sponsor was that just because you can run very successfully further education doesn't necessarily mean that you've got what it takes to support a school which is a secondary school. And they've seen that across the country, where suppliers of further education, often doing it very successfully, have just simply not had the expertise to come in and run a secondary school. And when I talk to the Torch Academy group, for example, who run several secondary schools, by virtue of that, they have a lot of expertise. They know what it takes to run schools. They know what it takes to turn around schools that are underperforming. They have experienced secondary school teachers and leaders who can come in and mentor staff, or perhaps come in as staff themselves in the school. And I think that really makes the difference in terms of being able to provide serious levels of resource to a school, and not just a more moderate sort of mentor relationship. And I sense that the Newark Academy needs a really serious and intensive commitment, which I think is exactly what the Torch group is going to provide.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, again, from my opinion, looking at the primary school system in the town here, with the government's move to want to make more academies in this Parliament, there also at some point will have to be more support further down into primary school education, because I think quite a number of schools here that are looking at this as a possibility don't also have the necessary know-how to convert themselves, or indeed join other academy chains down on the primary school level. And I think sitting at Barnby Road Academy, it's a nice environment to be in. The school here has obviously been an academy for quite a while, but with the government's kind of change again in that view of wanting to make more academies in this Parliament, would you see then groups like Torch looking at the primary school system as well as the secondary to support? Is that something they don't have the necessary skill to do either?
Well, I don't know about Torch in particular, but there are certainly other multi-academy chains in this area who are interested in working with primary schools. So, for example, in the north of my constituency, Tuxford School is run by another very good multi-academy partnership. I think they call it DALP. And there are a lot of small primary schools in rural areas, in particular in North Nottinghamshire, where they don't feel they're getting the support they want from the local authority. They'd like to build strong links with Tuxford School because that is their local secondary school and a successful school. And so I think they're very open to the idea of joining DALP and forging a sort of long-term successful partnership that focuses on how can you build good links between the primaries and the secondary school, and in particular, how can you support small rural primary schools to ensure that they have a long-term future? Because you have some schools, certainly in that area, and some closer to Newark, where the rolls are very low, perhaps 50, 60, 70 pupils, and we all want to see them survive, because I certainly believe in those small community schools as an important resource, and often their standards are very high, but it is a struggle to make them work, and it's tough on the teachers to teach in such small schools. So I do see there are some academy groups like that. The diocese are creating a multi-academy trust, and I know that there's a number of primary schools who are Church of England primary schools, like East Bridgeford, for example, or Aslockton, and I'm sure there are others closer to Newark who would like to remain under the auspices of the Church of England and are pursuing that as an opportunity. And then I think the other opportunity is for groups of schools who are like-minded, who have similar problems, just to come together themselves and not rely on somebody else, but to create their own multi-academy trust. And I suspect we'll see that in Newark. In the south of my constituency, in the Bingham area, we're seeing that where a group of schools in Bingham, in Burton Joyce, in Cropwell Bishop, who know each other, who respect each other's ways of teaching, they're coming together because they think that 6 or 7 local primary schools could make a real difference if they work together. And I suspect the same will happen in Newark over the next couple of years. There's certainly some excellent head teachers in the Newark area, so the leadership is there if those head teachers want to pursue it and to create their own academy trusts.
Okay, let's go back to Mr. Tomasevic and the plan ahead for the next academic year. There's been a lot of talk about the free school and it appears that he has had quite a sizable amount of support for the Torch Academy Gateway Trust's free school plan. Where does this leave it now if he's coming in to hopefully support and run the Newark Academy? Is there a call for that school anymore? Because we've got both of our secondary schools, as we said earlier, are half full, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I think the original justification for the free school was never about under capacity, because we know that both of our schools have a lot of spare capacity. So that was never the justification. The reason for having a free school was about standards. It was that the two secondary schools in the town, whilst they get many things right, have many excellent teachers, their exam results are not where they should be, and a lot of parents in the town simply don't have confidence in those schools, as we see in the fact that almost half of young people go to school out of the town. There are a variety of reasons why parents choose to send their child to Till or Minster or Tuxford or to a Lincolnshire school, but there must be a common thread that those parents, almost 50%, just don't trust the two secondary schools. So the idea of the free school was to set up an entirely new school that broke that cycle, that could hopefully have a great deal of trust amongst parents, could try and repatriate, if you like, some of those pupils who are going to school out of town, by saying certainly to the 400-500 children who go to Tootil, well, if you can't get into Tootil, or if Tootil needs to take pupils from the Bingham area, go to Tootil 2 in Newark. And I think also it was about creating a benchmark school, so that from the word go, you could create a school which was good, if not outstanding, and which would really set the bar for what a good school looks like, would create some healthy competition in the town, and which could help to leverage those skills and successes for the benefit of the other schools. The criticism of the free school would be, if you're playing devil's advocate, that it will take pupils away from the two existing schools, in particular the academy, which was in a more difficult place, and you'd see parents saying, well, I do want to send my child to a local school, and now there is the free school, I can send them to that school, and that would only intensify the problems at the two existing schools. I think the fact that John Tomasevich and Torch are now to take over the academy will hopefully alleviate some of those concerns in the minds of parents and those who really support the Newark Academy, certainly, because you can see that if we were to have both the free school and the Newark Academy run by the Torch Group and by this particularly good, inspirational, educational leader, John Tomasevich, then there will be no interest for him to poach children from the Newark Academy. He will want to see both schools succeed. He'll want to see a lot of working between the two schools, sharing of facilities perhaps, teachers, expertise, and to have two schools in the town sharing that very, I think, very strong philosophy of the two that you see in evidence at Tootil must be good for the town. Now, I don't have any inside information as to whether the free school application will succeed or not, and if it didn't succeed, I think we would have had a big step forward anyway in the fact that we'd got John Tomasevich and his group into the town to run one of our two schools. Personally, I think it would be even more positive for the town if we heard that the town would have, by 2017, 3 schools, 2 of which were being run by one, if not the most highly regarded educational leader in this area, and that the 2 schools would work together in a positive relationship and not be, in any sense, competing against each other.
Yeah. Where does this leave the Magnus?
Well, I think the Magnus also has work to do. We see at the Magnus that Jill Barker, the head teacher, is going to retire, and I think, wish her well. I know that an appointment is about to be made. I look forward to meeting that person when they're formally appointed. But I think the Magnus will have to, just like the Newark Academy, concentrate on raising aspiration, improving opportunities. Exam results are improving at the Magnus, but there's still further to go. There will obviously be more competition in the town because we're going to see, I hope, significant change at the Newark Academy. And if there is a free school, that will introduce a new element, an opportunity into the town, which is clearly demand for, because that proposal has attracted, I think, double the number of applicants that the government asks for. So there's clearly a lot of parents who want it.
Was that the case, though? Was it a case more of the fact at the time, the opportunity that has now been seized by Torch to come here and, as you say, really help the Newark Academy, that wasn't for general consumption, was it? This has been a plan that's been looked at for a number of months, away from what we know. So all of a sudden we get this information through, say that Torch Group could have a free school built into the town. Isn't this brilliant? And we're all going as parents, yeah, it's fantastic because our kids can stay in Newark. But that was before last week's announcement. So all of a sudden people are now saying to me, for example, as we chat, we've just spent £20 million on the Newark Academy. How much is it going to be to build a free school at a time when our two existing schools are still undersubscribed? So is it not a better option now not to bother just yet? Let's see what happens. Why are we spending another, or could we be spending another 15 million on top of the 20 million we've spent before? Just as a...
that's a view I've heard many people say. Look, it wouldn't be £15 million because you're talking about creating a new school one class at a time. So actually... the school will be, if it does get the go-ahead, will be constructed and will grow organically over many years, and its size will depend on its success and its ability to attract pupils. But the town has the capacity for 3 secondary schools. And in fact, the town is growing very quickly. We see new developments being built across Newark and Balderton and Coddington. You see over 1,000 new homes being built in the next wave of Fernwood. There's 1,000 more coming south of Newark. These homes will predominantly be filled by young families, so there'll be lots of new children coming into the town. So there is capacity. The problem in Newark, as we all know, is that because of a particular issue with the 2 secondary schools, almost 50% of pupils do not go to school in the town. So if you can break that cycle and encourage those parents to send their children to schools locally, then there is capacity for 3 schools overnight. But you'll only do that if you can convince enough parents that the schools in the town are of the right standards. And so it's really about standards. It's not about, just filling all the places or coming up with a neat solution that looks good on paper. It is about standards. And I think the free school, certainly its proponents, would argue that it is essential for the town to have a benchmark school that from the word go is good or outstanding, has excellent teachers, attracts pupils, and really sets the standard for the town. Now, I hope that by the time the free school gets going, we've also seen significant improvements at the other 2 schools. And so, in fact, there'll be a highly competitive educational landscape in the town with a number of good schools, each having different education. I'm sure that they will have their own market and they'll choose to focus on different things, and that's a good thing for parents. But you want to have choice in the town. Today, there's a lot of choice for parents, but half of the choices involve significant cost and effort in sending your child into Lincolnshire or to Tootle or Tuxford, and not everybody wants to do that, because a lot of people perfectly reasonably believe that they should send their child to a local school and want their child to have the experience and the pleasure, frankly, of going to school down the road and having friends in the town, or the money, because it costs hundreds of pounds to put your child on a bus every day and send them out of town. Many people can afford that, many people can't. What I want to see is a very competitive landscape in the town with 2 or indeed 3 good or outstanding schools, and I think that will make a massive difference to the town. Virtually the only thing holding back Newark today are the 2 secondary schools. If we want to attract more jobs to the town, good quality businesses, if we want to attract young families to the new homes that are being built, it's all got to be about getting the right secondary schools.
Do you think people kind of... here's something I wanted to ask you for a while. I mean, free school, academy school, if you've been to the meetings that Mr. Tomasevic has hosted, then you're more in the picture. I unfortunately couldn't go to those meetings. What are the differences? Academy, free school. Why is the government looking at wanting to make more free schools in this parliament? I mean, what's the major benefit?
Well, I wouldn't get too hung up on the name free school. A free school is really an academy. So the idea behind the Newark Free School is simply, I think it's quite a simple concept really. It's that the people who run Two Till in Bingham are coming to the conclusion that because Bingham itself is growing, and the wider area like Radcliffe and Gamston and so on, there's a lot of demand for that school. It's a school on a very constrained site. There's 2,000 pupils. They do all sorts of complicated mechanisms like having different lunch hours and so on. The days when they'll be able to take hundreds of pupils from the Newark area are coming to an end. And so if we were sat here in 5 years' time, it may be that children from the Newark area just simply can't get places at that school, or else they would be turning away pupils from the Bingham area. And given that I represent both Newark and Bingham, I also feel very sorry for parents in Bingham or East Bridgeford or the villages around there if they were told that they couldn't send their child to the local school. So that school has to do something about that particular problem. And they're also aware that, as I say, Newark does have an issue with 2 underperforming secondary schools, certainly in terms of their exam results, and the fact that hundreds of parents don't feel that the two schools in the town are what they're looking for. Now, I say, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know the exact reasons behind that, and I certainly don't want to decry the teachers at our 2 secondary schools, but there's certainly a problem. And the idea behind the Newark Free School is to come in, instantly create a school because of its brand and its association with Two Till, which can tempt those pupils back, or their successors who would otherwise have gone to Two Till, back to a school in the Newark area, and can almost immediately instill confidence in parents and break the cycle that so many parents feel the need to send their child out of town to go to school. And I think that must be a good thing for the town. I have quite a simple view of education, that if somebody who is highly respected, one of the most respected leaders of schools in the country, wants to come to our town and create a school, and has a huge amount of vim and vigour, and really, I think, is driven by a desire for social justice and a belief that every child should have the best opportunities in life. If somebody that passionate and committed wants to come to Newark and set up a school and has an excellent track record behind him, why would we stop him? We want people like that to be setting up outstanding schools in this town. Of course, it will shake things up a bit, but, that's a good thing. And I don't think that the other schools should see it as an existential threat. I think they should see it as an opportunity for us to create a very dynamic landscape with 3 good schools in the town where parents can look around and make their choices, visit the schools, decide which one suits them and, more importantly, suits their children, but to know that there is a choice in the town and that there are good and outstanding schools in Newark. Yeah.
Big story, isn't it? I know for the last 7 days it's been on everyone's mind. Lots and lots of questions asked. I mean, as this radio station's based in a primary school, it makes perfect sense to talk about it. It was quite difficult last week when the news broke to actually talk about it on the air here, because of course we didn't get any official releases of information from those that knew more than we did. I know the Newark Advertiser did, but we didn't. And I think one thing from our point of view, it'd be really nice in the future to think that the opportunity to talk these things through at a time when it is hot, very hot. I mean, we really appreciate you coming today. But
I will certainly do everything I can to ensure you get the information. For parents, this was a difficult one because it was simmering away. I certainly knew that all these discussions were underway, and for some time now I've really known what the likely destination was going to be. But I think perfectly understandably, there was a legal process to go through with the school. There are teachers, and employees of the school, and there's a legal relationship with the Lincoln College Group. And so as far as the Department for Education was concerned, they had to tie all this up officially before they went public, and they had to do that in the right way, not allow information just to seep out. And disinformation or misinformation is worse sometimes than a little bit of a wait until they could get the right messages out there. So I think it has been frustrating because the parents that I've been dealing with now, almost since the beginning of the year, have been left in a degree of limbo. But I've tried to allay concerns because I felt that we were heading in the right direction and that there was going to be a positive announcement. It was just a question of waiting for the time when there's 2 schools, Two Till and Newark, felt that they could make the announcement.
Would you know then that, we'll move on in a second, but those children that have left the Newark Academy, there have been quite a few that have left in the last few months. My godson is one of them. He's wandered off into Lincolnshire.
Mm.
Now you've got this situation where change of sponsor. Those that left, I wonder whether they are able to think twice about their choices. Maybe some will, maybe some won't. Do you think, from Torch's point of view, their September intake from Newark will alter slightly due to this announcement, being as they will be taking over sponsorship of the Newark Academy and the organisational and operational situation from September also? So we don't have to wait till September 2017 to look at a potential new free school opening, because it's there. The new academy's already there.
Yeah, well, look, if any, as I understand, only actually a very small number of pupils have left the school in the last few months, and in fact some others have come to the school. So I think from the information I've been given, at least, the situation is actually pretty neutral. So I wouldn't overstate that. Okay. But no, if you have taken your children away from the school because perhaps you were concerned, then and you want to come back, I'm sure, speak to the school, speak to the to Corinne Jasper, the head teacher, and get in touch and try and see if there's an opportunity to come back. Look, I think the free school, if it happens, we don't know where that yet. There's an official process with the government, but even if it does happen, that's a school that's not going to open until September 2017, and will be 1 year at a time from then onwards. So that that's a separate process, some way off. At the moment, there's a fabulous opportunity here for the whole community to get behind the school with John Tomasevich and his team and the existing staff at the school. So please get in touch with the school, and I hope that they can increase the role of the school in September and every year thereafter. Because if you think of what happened during the strike action, it was really quite a simple problem, that funding from the government follows pupils. And so if you lose a pupil on the roll, you lose corresponding amount of funding. And that's why, at the end of the day, teachers had to be lost from the school. So we all need to increase the role of both the Magnus and the Academy if we want to see the schools get more money, improve their facilities, improve the number of teachers at the school. And you do that, of course, by raising confidence and by getting the exam results that parents are looking for.
Yeah.